Good morning and welcome to another episode of Morning Java, brought to you as always by our friends at GetGo, where they have a new app, Dale.
Yeah, and they have some specials available only on that app in the 24 days leading up to Christmas.
It's really nice, too. You can order in advance, like before you get there, the food's just sitting there waiting for you.
That's a great thing.
All fresh food. Let's talk a little bit about football. The Steelers are heading out to Oakland this weekend, and they will do so with a different running back taking the field. Or is he even a running back? Because we're asking about Jalen Samuels here, and it's crazy that he's not a running back.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at Jalen Samuels, he's gotten 12 carries this year thus far. When they drafted him, you're talking about a guy who was basically an H-back in college, and Nyheim Hines was the main ball carrier at North Carolina State, and Samuels was kind of the third down back slash, catch the football. His season high in carries last year at North Carolina State was 12.
12,
he
matching
had more,
his season total this year.
He had
right?
more catches than he had carries. He's never been a high carry guy. So, I was tooling around the internet last night, and I saw ESPN on their fantasy site had him lit down for 18 points this week. And I know everybody's fired up about
crazy,
that.
yeah.
That's a big game in fantasy. And I'm like,
the thing is,
tap the brakes here a little bit.
Yeah,
he's not going to get the ball that much.
But in fairness to him, he's progressed from what we hear around the Steelers and from what we've seen of our own eyes, including the pretty impressive touchdown that he put up against the Chargers.
Receiving.
The other night. Yeah, but he also he still had to make a play in the open field
absolutely.
once he got out there, and he did. That was not a gimme putt of a touchdown once the ball was in his hands.
But he's learning to play the running back position as a true running back at the NFL level.
But he's made progress.
Sure, he has.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I talked to him in the spring. We had him on during an OTA session, and he told me he had never worked as a pass blocker before because he had always been out in a pattern.
Crazy. Well, if there's a good time or a good team to go against, it would be the Raiders. So the Cardinals get Paul Goldschmidt because, of course, the Cardinals get Paul Goldschmidt. The Cardinals can't look at the Cubs and Brewers and just say, you know what, we're just going to let them battle for the top of the division.
Exactly. They missed the playoffs 3 years in a row now, and that's an eternity for that franchise. Yeah. And, they've taken some heat from the fans that they think they don't spend much, which we know fans is another fan base, but it's on a different level.
The funny thing about that is that St. Louis and Pittsburgh are identical markets.
They are.
But the Cardinals get their feet held to the fire for, what is their payroll, 110, 120 million. Yeah. Different world, man, different world. But this is
it's a significant acquisition. I mean, even if they just have him just for this upcoming year because he's on the final year of his contract, that gives them the big bat they really need in the middle of the lineup.
Does it make them competitive with the Cubs and Brewers?
Oh, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that was sort of the missing piece. I like their pitching. I think their pitching, they got a lot of good young pitchers that are going to get better, and I think they needed that big thumper in the middle of the lineup, and they have him now.
It's tempting to just dive right into what this means for the Pirates, but setting them aside, are the Reds on the rise?
Well, they want to be. I mean, they have made their intentions clear that they're going to spend money this winter. They're trying to throw money at J. Happ, Dallas Keuchel, two of the best remaining free agents on the market, and they say after 490-plus lost seasons, they're tired of losing and it's time to start to win again.
See,
and
that's the thing. As long as you have Joey Votto on your roster, that's how I see it. As long as you have him there at first base, regardless of how much he's getting paid, and I know what kind of a competitor he is. Yeah. There's no way he's just going to tolerate all this losing forever and ever.
No, I don't think, and it's surprising. I've asked him a couple times in the last few years.
He's a total pro about it.
Yeah, why don't you kind of push to get out?
Yeah.
I know he has a no-trade clause, but certainly that can be worked around. And he said he wants to win in Cincinnati, and he's not a quitter, and he's going to stick it out, and he knows they're going to win again. So I do think they see Joey's 32, 33 now, that the window's starting to close a little on his prime years, and if they're going to take advantage of it, they better do it pretty soon.
All I'm basically saying here is that if the Reds get better, don't even make me say it. A little bit of hockey. Daniel Sprong is gone now.
Yeah, finally.
And the post-mortem isn't to be written probably for years because you do have to give him a chance and everything else, evaluate trades and everything. But within his context of his time in Pittsburgh and in the Pittsburgh organization, there's already been a whole lot of misconceptions, haven't there?
Yeah, I think the thing I've seen, people are comparing him to Pouliot.
No.
It's a very different situation.
Including with the coach. The coach, meaning Mike Sullivan, had his own issues with Pouliot that he didn't have with Sprong.
Yeah, Sprong, even Clark Dontelli, the coaches really liked Sprong. It wasn't really an issue of effort.
No, I never heard one person say he wasn't trying hard enough, on or off the
Donatelli, record. He has said all the talent in the world. He was a pleasure to coach. Like he
listened to everything.
Yeah.
It just didn't always make it all the way in for whatever reason.
Sprong, I mean, he was really hurt by that first stint in the NHL that really ruined his waiver eligibility. He only played 65 games in Wilkes-Barre, and that's not enough.
Oh, you mean because he had to go back to juniors afterward? Because
his entry-level contract kicked in 2015.
Right.
It ruined the amount of time he would have. He didn't have the normal amount of time to be exempt.
I hate that rule. Because if you and I talked about this at the time, remember? We were like, if he had that time, instead of being in Charlottetown, which is where he was, right, with PEI, if he had spent that same time in Wilkes-Barre.
Yeah, he could have been at least a full season, if not more, maybe like 2 seasons in Wilkes-Barre. I mean, it would have been a different story.
Because this kind of things, the shortcomings that did bother the coaches were, and still are, correctable things.
Yeah, and he never got a chance. I mean, juniors, he was playing for a very good junior team. He didn't have in the queue, so
he could score at will from any
so
point
he
in
didn't
his own.
have a chance to play defense. And then he comes to Wilkes-Barre, and I mean, he was on a third line role with 2 strong 2A players in Garrett Wilson and Gage Quinney, and they were a good line. But he only spent 65 games down there. If he could have played a full season or more, I mean, he really would have benefited.
In addition to that time, and everything else come up, it would have made a big difference.
Yeah, and then he comes up, and his waiver exempt status is over. There's not anything they can do with him.
Right now, he's stuck in the NHL.
Now if he's a liability, are you going to keep throwing him out there on the?
It's amazing. I can't remember a kid in the Penguins' history who was that victimized, if you will, by the restrictions between the various leagues.
Yeah, and I see comments like trying to I guess bury Sprong. They're like, oh, he wasn't popular with his teammates.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I'm sure you heard very differently.
And I don't know. I mean, I follow these guys on social, and you'll see that them on Instagram. He'd be going out with them. Like, he was a popular guy. He was liked. And it just didn't work out.
Didn't work out. Yeah. And now he's a Duck.